What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast. Happy Friday. Hope you had an outstanding Thanksgiving with your family. Now it's go time, man. The weekend has begun. College football starts today. Ton of huge games for the Canes, for college football in general, and then the biggest one tomorrow at noon is going to be probably the biggest game we've had in, 20 years, man. That's what it feels like. We are here in Duffy's Tavern, the home of the Hurricanes, right on the edge of Coral Gables. I'm here with Peter Reese. So you're looking for a place to watch the games. Can't do much better than right here, right, Pete?
Yeah, Duffy's, man. Home away from home, as you always say, for me, definitely. I always get extra tempted when we come in here on a Friday morning because I say, man, like I gotta go work after, I gotta do work after this, and I don't want to get too excited too early, but I'm sure I'll find my way back here. Thank you, Wayne.
Cheers.
Later this weekend.
Shout out to Wayne. The Pain was just seeing his fraternity picture right here.
Yeah, your service.
Back when the Canes were good, now we're good again. Appreciate it, Wayne.
I have one question for you because I haven't said anything about this, but we've been throwing this around. Biggest game in 20 years, right? We said this last year about the Florida game before the season.
Yeah.
We said this about the Notre Dame game to start the season.
Syracuse.
Did it really count as the biggest game in 20 years? And we had 4 of them in the last 2 seasons.
It's escalating in
But that's what
importance.
Mario's doing, man. Right? The relevance. That's what I keep talking about, man. Established relevance. That's been my phrase this week, and hopefully they can polish it off tomorrow for the back-to-back 10-win seasons as I think is a huge accomplishment. But
yeah, shout out to the arena, man. Appreciate your support. Appreciate the support of Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. So, Pete, let's just get right into it here because we are privileged to have the man, Lance Roffers, bringing us upon further review, brought to you by Canada Financial. Before we bring in Lance, just look at CanesInSight.com. You got the free article there. This is Lance breaking it down, basically play-by-play. He does this all year and in the offseason, breaking down games, play-by-play, detail by detail, alignment, assignment, all that. You see it right here upon further review. This is the detailed written version. We got the man himself. Again, thank you to Canada Financial for making this happen. The one and only Lance Roffers. Lance, get in here. Oh, there he is.
There he is. Hey, before we do sound check, how's that today? I got some complaints that we had a little lag last week. So tell me how the sound is.
sounds good to me.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. How was Thanksgiving?
That kind of thing's always great, right? You get a chance to hang out with family and eat too many calories and see dorks on Twitter talk about how things 7 cigarettes and things like that. So, it was a good day. How about you both?
It's pretty good, man. Although the weekend can get a lot better or a lot worse, in the next 2 days. So this is really what it's all about. We'll give thanks, obviously. We're thankful to be in this position where we're talking about relevant football here this late in the year, as opposed to just kind of looking at recruiting or portal or coaches getting fired and all that. But yeah, man, it's a lot. It's a lot. So really, starting today, the games get very important for the Canes. We won't get into all the algorithms because really all that matters is one game, which is Miami against Pitt, Lance. And you did a very detailed breakdown against Virginia Tech, which is on the website. And we could talk about that as we get into this game coming up. But I really want to focus on the Pitt game because obviously that's what it's all about. And Virginia Tech game, we learned a little bit about the team, but ultimately it is a much different test this week. So my first question right off the top, Pitt, we know what they do on defense. I'm assuming you having watched them, it's the same thing they've been doing for the past 10 years. What are the keys to defeating this? Let's start with the defensive side. This Pitt defense for Miami's offense.
Yeah, it's the same defense, like you say, right? They've run that 4-2-5 with press quarters or cover 3. They'll spin into one or the other, kind of post snap, and try and mess with the quarterback. And really, when they're trying to get into cover 3, most of the time they're going to run a robber of some sort. Sometimes they'll run double robbers and try and invert. I won't get too technical with your audience, but basically what they're trying to do is change the picture post snap in that coverage to create turnovers, right? They're going to stick their outside corners one-on-one on your outside wide receivers. Your wide receivers are going to have to win one-on-one in this type of game to at least force them to, consider the fact that you can beat them deep, beat them vertical in this type of game. Really, if you want to kind of get into like the schematics of how you beat this defense, you're going to focus a lot on the front side safety. So the front side safety in press quarters really has to drive hard on the number 2 receiver. And so a lot of ways that you can get their alignment and get some free yards is you can have your number 2, do 8-yard outs, right? Because the number 2 safety has to drive hard onto that route to be able to get there and cover that, right? Because your 1, like I said, is always going to be one-on-one to your outside 1 receiver. Excuse me. So that's one way that you can do that. The second way that you can put them in conflict whenever you do get them into the press quarters, I'm specifically talking about their press quarters coverage when I'm talking about these type of concepts right now. You can really run that post dig concept that you see in the NFL all the time, right? Where that's a difficult throw for a college quarterback, though. And this is a game, in my opinion, I wrote up some notes for this. And the very first line that I wrote up, to kind of prepare for the show is, this is why you paid Beck all that money, right? This game right here is why you gave Beck all the money that you gave him to be able to make those throws against this defense. He's going to have to make NFL throws in this game. So kind of that second concept that really puts their press quarters into a bind is that post dig concept that I talked about. So I've already kind of talked about the front side safety, but the backside safety in their press quarters, he now has to determine if he's going to, sink and take that dig, the over dig. Basically think of it like a deep crosser, right? So he's going to take that. And so if he jumps down on that, now you've got, the post. If he takes the post and he jumps down on that, you've got the dig to the backside or the boundary receiver, right? That's going to be your read for your quarterback. Again, that's another NFL throw, right? Think of a 20-yard, comeback route. You got to have an arm to be able to do that. And it's far side of the field most of the time, right? If anytime you're boundary, that's your condensed space. That makes it a longer throw. Those are NFL throws, Pete will tell you that, in his days of scouting and aging and doing those things. That's one of the very first throws that you have to kind of check the box as an NFL quarterback to be able to make. I think Beck can make that throw, right? So now you've got 2 concepts that your quarterback has to be able to hit where it really takes physical talent to be able to do so, which is one of the reasons why Pitt's defense works so well in college, and you never see an NFL team adopt it, right? Because in the NFL, they would just eat this defense up. What Pitt does is they park their safeties at 8 to 10 yards deep, right? So they're not actually deep off of the line of scrimmage. 8 to 10 yards is short in schematics for football. And what they're trying to do with that is they're trying to insert those 2 additional safeties into their run fit. And now they've got a 9-man box that they can then also play coverage off of, right? It's a cool defense to watch on film, quite frankly. And so those are 2 pass concepts where you really require talent to be able to hit it. And then the third one that maybe doesn't require as much talent, but you can really kind of scheme open is you really can get them with the wheel in this defense, right? Because of the fact that your 1's going to take your 1 on the other side. Now your front side safety is kind of responsible for dropping down, like I talked about earlier. So if you run that wheel behind it, you can really hit them with some explosives if their linebacker, is coming in pressure or is filling hard in the run, which is something they love to do. So an RPO with wheel is another way that you can really attack this defense. I love the concept with Tony in the backfield, where you have maybe 2 running backs in the backfield. So you keep the threat of the run with maybe a Fletcher or a Pringle, and then running Tony on a wheel out of that. I really think you're going to see that get schemed up in 1 or 2 shot plays in this game. And then kind of another concept that everybody runs, right, is that RPO, glance, inside duo run, and then with a glance, and then you'll attach a bubble to it most of the time, right? So you've got if you think of a bubble, that's just a little slip screen, off to the generally field side, and then you've got a glance, which is a fancy slant. And then you've got an inside zone run that you attach to it so that the defense, when they fill, you throw the glance. When they drop, you give the zone, the inside zone. So that's kind of the way you attack this defense for the most part, right? The Pitt defense, every one of their defenders are going to try and get their drops to 8 to 10 yards. And they're inviting you to throw the check down. That is something they want you to do over and over and over. They want you to throw that check down, and they're going to rally forward and tackle. That's something they do great. That's something their corners do. And then I'll kind of talk about another thing that, a lot of times when fans watch the Pitt defense and they hear one-on-one on the outside corners and you hear win, on the outside, you think, well, okay, why are we not throwing fades against them the whole game? We probably will take a couple of fade shots on both outsides with that. But think about what the Pitt defense is doing, right? You said it. I've said it. Pete says it. Pete's grandma probably says it. They've been running this defense for 10 years, right? So if we all know that, the coaches, right, that means they were also recruiting to this system for 10 years, right? And that means they've got corners that they are drilling over and over and over to play the fade. Their corners are well-versed in how to play that, how to find the ball whenever the receiver, shows hands, how to knock that away. And so that's something that they have prepared for as well. And that means your receiver is going to have to win twice in this game against corners who have drilled on that and know how to defend that play over and over, right? So those are kind of like your basic schematics in the passing game on how you can really attack this defense. I'll pause there and see if you got any follow-up questions on that.
Well, I have a couple questions. One, I mean, do you like the chances for Miami's outside receivers to win those matchups based on what you've seen from the Pitt corners? Because, like, okay, for example, going into the Louisville game, you said we know Chris Bell is going to get the ball, and we have to see if Miami can do anything about it, and Miami could not do anything about it. I mean, on the other side of the coin, before we played NC State, you said, hey, the receivers really are average, and I don't think they're going to be able to beat Miami down the field. So when you talk about the corners and how important that is to this matchup, I mean, how do you kind of assess the receivers? Obviously, Malachi Toney, he works a lot from the slot, but Keelan Marion's been very consistent. I would expect CJ Daniels, as you saw him last week, and I think they've been ramping him up. I expect him to go. I mean, how do you see that matchup playing out after you've talked about the importance of it?
Yeah, we've had conversations on this pod the last 6 or 8 weeks. I'm not going 6, 7 on you there, but they have definitely grown, I believe. But we have talked consistently about, can our outside wide receivers, develop, and can we have a third, a second, a third, fourth option really kind of develop within this passing game? Also on this pod, Danny asked me what games worried you, right? And I listed 3 games that worried me this year. I listed the Louisville game, I listed the SMU game, and I listed the Pitt game. So unfortunately, I had a little bit of Lance Stradamus on the other 2. This game makes me nervous. I believe Pitt has an advantage in the way that they match up with Miami in this game in many ways. I believe that the way they play their defense does not play into the strength of Miami's offense outside. I think the way they spin their coverages post-snap and try and catch you with robbers does not play into Beck's strengths that I've seen on film, where, he really has thrown the ball into harm's way a few times, right? And in this particular game, I think Beck has to see them spin from that press quarters into the cover 3 late and then rob the glance or rob the out, rob the wheel, whatever it is that you've hit them with a few times, they're going to counter that. They're going to counter that by trying to spin into 3 and opening up that front side safety to not have a coverage responsibility. And then he can do what, you'll hear people say robber, right? And basically what that's just doing is trying to jump into a zone where they think the ball is going to go on the first read and try and, get a turnover. That is something you see from Pitt routinely on their film, and it works. It works over and over because college quarterbacks are, they're not pros. They're not NFL quarterbacks, and sometimes they see it late. And the other thing that they do with that, and I haven't really touched on their front yet because I've really focused on their coverages just based on the questions, but what they do with that is they attach pressure on the front end, right? Most defenses will send 5, and they really will want to pressure 5. You can call that pressure 5s or sims a lot of times from defenses. What Pitt really does, though, is they send 6. So they actually insert another man into the pressure package, which oftentimes is going to be very difficult for an offense to block. You may be thinking to yourself, well, we've got 5 offensive linemen and a running back and maybe a tight end. Why is that difficult to block? Well, because a lot of times they'll overload or they'll come from places that you're not expecting pressure. They do that with cornerback blitzes, nickel blitzes, safety blitzes. They really bring those people and it all looks the same over and over, right? I've talked many times already on this pod about the fact they're parked at 8 to 10 on their safeties. They are getting their drops to 8 to 10 over and over and then trying to rally forward. So if as a quarterback you get caught slipping and expecting that that's what they're going to do on this play and you throw it blindly or you throw it too quick, you're going to put the ball in harm's way for a robber. And then the second thing is, if you're expecting those drops from your outside corner over and over, or maybe your backside corner, if he blitzes from your blind side and you're not anticipating where your hot is, you don't have a hot and the receiver's not on the same page, right? You're going to get sacks and maybe turnovers from your quarterback fumbling the ball when he gets hit, not being seen. Really, that's the whole thing that Pitt's defense is trying to do. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to get you to check the ball down and rally to it. And then they're trying to get tackles for losses and turnovers. They thrive on turnovers. If Pitt doesn't get turnovers on defense, Miami will win this game because they'll be able to move the ball on them with some of their glance and their RPOs and some of their duo runs that they'll be able to pop a few times in this game and keep it on schedule. But really what wins the games for Pittsburgh is when they get turnovers and when they get those tackles for loss and get you off schedule on offense.
Yeah, very good tackle for loss team, very good turnover team, top 10 takeaways. They'll obviously stop the run based on the way they're set up to do that. At least that's going to be their focus. One thing I do think we have an advantage on is, I'm not sure Miami is a great team to send this kind of pressure at, given the way we play our offensive line, just how it's basically a wall. I mean, not just in effect, but the way it's actually set up physically with their size and with the splits. And then you have Mark Fletcher, who I think Biles and Lewis, 3 and 9, are great players, and they're going to make an impact on this game, the 2 linebackers. But I do think, Mark Fletcher's bigger than both those guys and probably more physical than them. I think he can, him at pass blocking becomes a weapon there. So I don't know. Do you think that the fact that they bring 6 so frequently, I'll say plays in Miami's hand because they're going to get it. They're going to get one in there, but we're more quick to make them pay for that from a blocking standpoint, if not necessarily from a vertical threat standpoint than maybe other teams. How do you see that matchup going up front?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the fact that the tight splits, the size of Miami's offensive line, plus just the talent of Miami's offensive line, right? Maybe they haven't lived up to their all-world number one, in the country this year, but they're still really good, right? And if you look at the pressure percentages on pass plays allowed, Miami is number one in that statistic by a long ways. In fact, by something like 5 or 6% over number 2. And if you run the numbers on all that, your standard deviation is probably like 3 or 4%, meaning they're more than one standard deviation ahead of the second team, which is a big deal. That really means they're quite a bit better than any other team when it comes to allowing pressures. I'm not all that worried about pressures from a lineup standpoint and beat us with 5 or beat us with, just sending a linebacker. Really, where I'm concerned with Pittsburgh's pressure is in their cat blitzes. With what I mean by that is defensive back blitzes on the outside, where you're not, going against your offensive line in most cases in those situations, right? Because you're just coming from depth, right? And you need your quarterback to see that. You need your quarterback to see that and hit his hot. Or oftentimes what you're trying to do really is hit the receiver that they vacated, right? You want to replace that because somebody else is coming from depth to have to get to and drive on that. And you need your receiver to see that in the same way, right? And this year, one of my critiques for most of our ancillary receivers is they're not seeing it the same way the quarterback is seeing it. Whose fault that is, I can't say, right? I'm not in the room. I don't know how they called that. I don't know how they've designed it. I can tell you what I think and what my experience says, right, based on what I've watched in the past, that most of the time I believe it is on the receivers that I'm seeing in these games. They're not seeing it the same way as the quarterback. I think Beck, has been, I think, like 6 years in college now and probably seen and gone through a lot of Kirby Smart practices and film reviews where he would have learned a lot about coverages, in my view. You've seen it on film in the last several games as well, where Beck, is a little frustrated and is kind of like gesticulating with his hands, like you need to go this way and that kind of thing. I really need them to be on the same page and see those because there's going to be some shot plays available in this game, and there's going to be some busts. When you play a defense like Pittsburgh does, it comes at a cost, right? Because everyone would do it if it didn't come with a cost. And some of the costs that it comes with is you're going to give up explosives in the pass game. I haven't studied Pitt's numbers to a T, but I do believe they, are pretty poor or average in explosives overall in the pass game. Against the pass overall, I believe they're pretty average as well. And that comes because when the quarterback's on the same page or can make some of those throws that I talked about, you have opportunities against them. And then I really believe that this is a game where you can run like crack toss in the run game. Crack toss in the run game against what they do up front allows you to get 2-on-1s on the outside often because Pitt really does load that box. They really load the middle box, and they want you to run inside runs against them, when it looks like you've got an opportunity to hit the B gap, right? They really want you to run that into it because then they vice it with their safeties and their linebackers. That's something that Pitt is perfectly content with you getting 2-3 yard check downs and runs because they think eventually they're going to hit you with a negative play that you're not going to be able to get a first down with, just getting those 3 and 4 yard gains all game long. And they don't think that you can do a 14, 15, 16 play drive against them and score touchdowns, right? And, your listeners probably get a little tired of hearing the same keys over and over on these games all the time. But football really comes down to the money downs, comes down to 3rd and 4th downs, who's going to convert on those, comes down to turnovers. Is Miami going to protect the ball? And then it comes down to the red zone, right? Are you going to convert those red zone opportunities into touchdowns, or are you going to kick field goals? Pitt's happy for Miami to kick 5 field goals in this game, right? Pitt will win the game if Miami just kicks 5 field goals in this game. And I think we all agree on that, right? So those are kind of the keys for Miami's offense against Pitt. It's something that I've seen quite a bit on Pitt's film. I even studied a few years back and looked at different things that they've done, the ways that they've defended maybe some similar offenses. And I came away with the keys that I kind of talked about earlier. And then really it's a game. This is why you gave Beck all that money.
Lance, I wanted to kind of step away real quick from a lot of the X's and O's nitty gritty and just ask you about the matchup, the Pitt and Notre Dame matchup, right? Because I've seen some people in the comments say it. If you were just looking at the box score, watching the beginning of that game, Pitt got punched in the mouth there. Some wacky stuff happened, but they were down 21-0, 21-3.
Great Jeremiah Love run.
Yeah, crazy run there. But at the snap of a finger, the game was out of reach. It seemed like for them the way that Notre Dame can control a game, unless they're playing Miami or Texas A&M, of course. But to me, Pitt did a good job after that initial, beginning part of the game there of kind of stabilizing, right? And it was probably, that second half was probably more evenly matched than people realized, in my opinion. But what did you see there in terms of that game and how certain things could translate to this one? Were those just like some wacky things that happened that changed the game early, or do you think Notre Dame was really that much better than Pitt?
So let me answer this in kind of like if you listen to Narduzzi going into that game and the way he talked about, he doesn't care if they lose by 100 in that game as long as they win their conference games, and you're a player on that team, you tell me if you valued that game the same way that you're going to value this Miami game, where they still have a chance to go to the championship game as well. So you tell me that based on the way your coach is talking about a game and the way that your coach is saying that this really doesn't matter, are you as prepared? Are you giving the same effort? Do you have the same energy as you do for a game like this? To me, no, of course not. Pitt did not put their best foot forward in that game. I don't think they even cared if they won that game. And the way I know that is because their coach told me they don't care if they win that game. And I believe that definitely played a part in their start, in the fact that, they came out without a ton of energy, without a ton of fire, without a ton of emotion in that game. And I believe Notre Dame, punched them pretty good in that game. One, they hit an explosive run, which really kind of, put them behind in that game. Two, their young quarterback got fooled, had a turnover early, and Notre Dame converted both of those into points. So now, as you say, it's 21-0, right? It's basically over at that point. To come back from down 21-0 against a team that is a major favorite against you would have been quite unlikely, right? On top of that, Pitt had many, many injuries in that game that they purposefully sat those players because, again, Narduzzi told us he did not care about that game. And so that is not a game that you just look at and compare if you're the committee 1-to-1, right? And say, oh, well, Miami against Pitt won by 10 and Notre Dame won by whatever they won by, right? Because that is not an apples to apples comparison. The committee will do it anyway because they're idiots. But that is not really, in my view, the same thing. I think Pitt saved some things for their conference games, again, because they didn't care as much in that game. Now, what Miami can do is exactly what we've talked about, right? They can some of those explosives that Notre Dame hit, you're absolutely going to have to. You're going to have to find a way to hit some for yourself as well. You don't have a Jeremiah Love as far as, that level of speed and athleticism to maybe hit some of those 70, 80-yard runs. I do believe Pringle's very good. I've talked about that in the past. I do believe Fletcher's very good at what he does as well. I think we have a run game and we can probably hit some plays, but I don't know that I'm relying on hitting, 80-yard touchdown runs, but you need to hit some explosives in this game to get you out of those 15, 16-yard drives. And another thing I would love for Miami to do is press the Brews when they get an opportunity. They have Pittsburgh in a personnel package that they believe they can exploit. Go fast. Do not allow them to, sub out. That is one of my main critiques with Miami this year. If you're going to run a simple air raid offense like they do, simple can be a pejorative, but it's not always, right? In this case, it can be a good thing. You can be in a simple concept that allows you to go fast, right? And as soon as you get Pitt in an area where you believe the personnel package is not conducive to them, you just keep going and press that bruise until, you get into a down and distance where you want to then change up your own personnel.
Real quick, before we go any further, Lance, tell us about Canada Financial, who brings this segment to us every single week.
Yeah, our friends at CanadaFinancial.com, they are bringing this segment to us each week. They are your CFO, right? When you small business owners, we want to free you up to really be growing your business, finding your margins that you can grow to be more profitable with your business. Allow your friends at Canada Financial to be your experts. Something that right now we're building out 2026 plans at most businesses across the country, and maybe you don't know where to start with that. Maybe you think to yourself, you've got that under control and you can just use data that you've had in the past. But maybe there's opportunities that you can unlock by using a real professional. And Sebastian, he's one of us. He is a Canes fan. He's a transplant there in Atlanta who has followed the Canes for many, many years, kept his season tickets, tries to get to games just like us. Give you something to talk about, outside of just your business as well. You can talk about the Canes with him and find ways to, grow your margin, free you up to drive new revenue and grow your business without having to worry about some of the bookkeeping things. And also just have a pro when it comes to your budgeting and forecasting. Something I ran into in my day job, just last week was the business was putting together their forecast for 2026 and trying to do a CAGR. And CAGR is not the right, method to do for forecasting for 2026 because it's really a look back type tool, right? And when you apply it to, future looks, you're going to oversell how much something's going to bounce back in your business, right? But you wouldn't know that unless, you work in this industry and have done that in the past. And so Sebastian, his team, they will know the right method for you to do your budgeting and forecasting to really, get some accurate numbers for 2026. And they can help. So reach out, schedule a free call, or, just visit the website and he can get you set up that way also.
Yeah, so thank you to Canada Financial. That is Sebastian at CanadaFinancial.com. That's 2 N's and then the number 678-946-2266. Also, listen, if you got hurt in the Turkey Bowl yesterday or you're unable to perform, just consider yourself an active person trying to get around. You know how hard it is to sit and watch with an injury, maybe even try to hack your own rehab, come back early. But if compromising your movement or performance is not an option, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. That's uhealthsports.com. Whether it's elite competition with University of Miami Athletics or just everyday movement, the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute is the trusted choice for those who demand excellence. Set an appointment today, again, at uhealthsports.com. So, Lance, going on the other side of the ball, the obvious thing to me, first of all, the quarterback, Mason Heinschel, I think we all agree he is a really, really good player, promising player. Kind of reminds me a little bit of CJ Carr, who we saw earlier this season, but they're from the same part of the country right there. Heinschel's from Toledo, Ohio, right there on the Michigan border. Carr's from Michigan. So just similar players, similar age, similar instincts when you watch them play. They got a nice short area quickness to them. I thought Heinschel showed some nice pocket awareness when he played against, not just pocket awareness, but pocket passing when he played against Georgia Tech. I didn't know he had that ability to just stand in there and deliver, but he showed that. But clearly, the question with this Pitt offense, when you look at this matchup, is pass protection. 6 sacks against a Georgia Tech defense that otherwise is awful. And then, of course, Notre Dame gave them a lot of problems. How do you see this matchup with Miami's defense against Pitt offense, which is scoring a ton of points?
Yeah, this Pitt offense is not your grandpa's, Pitt offense, right? The slow inside, runs and try and out physical you. Believe it or not, this is one of the fastest tempo teams in the entire country. They really are trying to play fast. In fact, under their, freshman quarterback, I think they're top 3 in plays per game ever since he's taken over. That is something they really want to do. They really want to play fast. They play the typical, space you out, put a wide receiver, out on the sideline, basically. If you think back to the USF game, they're very similar to what USF does on offense. They just have more talent, right? So they want to hit those vertical shots, right? You remember in the USF buildup, that was something that was talked about over and over and over, right? That USF is going to stretch you horizontally, and then they're going to try and hit you vertically, right? Same thing with Pitt. They've got a quarterback that's going to run around. The difference between the quarterbacks for USF and for Pitt, first, you talked about the fact that he can throw from the pocket, right? And I don't think Brown is as good throwing from the pocket. And then the flip side of that is Brown was really trying to get out and run quite a bit, right? And this quarterback, he's not really looking to run, upfield to gain yardage. What he's really trying to do is run around in the pocket and hit explosives deep, right? So They also run that like fake quarterback draw swing to the horizontal, right? Where they, once they get you to step up and commit to the quarterback draw, they throw the ball out wide, and they've got those, splits that are super wide already. Your DBs are going to have to tackle in space to account for that, right? That's something that we didn't see the best of against Virginia Tech. Quite honestly, I was disappointed in the way our DBs played in that game overall, especially in the tackling standpoint. The way they, helped in the run game, I thought was subpar. When you're talking about a Miami defense and the standard that they've set thus far, I don't believe they lived up to it, quite honestly. I think the defensive front for Miami played very well in that Virginia Tech game, but, the linebackers and the DBs did not play well in that game, I did not believe. And so we're going to hopefully see a bounce back in this game, because that's something Pitt's going to absolutely try and exploit. And the other thing, they're definitely going to try and get those seam vertical shots. They will run some double moves against you, right, as they get kind of some of those like horizontal looks, those swing pass looks, those bunch formations that a lot of times you see teams do. That's something I also want to touch on for Miami that I kind of forgot about. But I do most of this off memory, so sometimes I forget things, unlike our friend Steve. But so you're definitely going to be trying to attack the rules in Miami's base defense that Heatherman's put on tape. This is one of the last games of the season. So everybody's seen everything you got at this point. They know, what you're going to run for the most part. And they're absolutely going to run those deep shots. They're going to try and get your DBs to tackle on the edges. And then they're going to insert the quarterback run game in big spots. So their quarterback is really good at identifying, what he needs to do on third down to pick up the first down, and he's pretty tough, right? You mentioned CJ Carr. I think that's a great, comparison. Another one that I would kind of talk about, obviously not first pick overall in the draft, but from a style standpoint, I think he's got a little Baker Mayfield in him. I really like the way he kind of, runs around to hit, vertical shots, but he also kind of enjoys like the physicality part of the game. He's got like a emotional side to him, a spark to him. You see him when he does get a first down, he loves to kind of, let you know about it a little bit. And I kind of like it. I like the guy. I mean, I've been talking about the guy on this pod, since his first game, because what I saw on him, I really liked, and I thought, ooh, that's gonna really help change their team a little bit. And fortunately, unfortunately, you're depending on your viewpoint, it has. I think it's an opportunity for Miami, because now they're thought of pretty well, right? They're on the cusp of being ranked there, and I feel like they're a pretty good team. And if Miami is able to go in and, have a good showing, you may be able to sneak into an at-large spot if you're not fortunate enough to get into the ACC championship game after this one. So I think that, you're going to see what I've outlined as like game plans to start the game, right? Then you're going to see counters. Both teams are going to counter what the other one's doing. You're going to have like your scripts at the beginning of the game, like you always do. A lot of times people get a little too high at the beginning of the game or a little too low at the beginning of the game, because the script that these coaches that are paid millions of dollars, works at the beginning of the game. And maybe they move the ball on you, or maybe they get a touchdown or a field goal to start the game. And we think, a little lower of our teams. The games, they begin late first quarter, start of the second quarter. That's when these games really begin, because you've kind of gotten through those scripting. You've kind of seen what the teams are going to do. And now it's the counters, right? Now what can the coaches do to counter what you're seeing out there? What players can make plays against what you've seen out there? And it's going to be interesting to see what Miami does in this game. I kind of wanted to just real quick circle back on the offense. I did fail to mention that one of the things that Pitt really does on defense, with their banjo coverage and in their quarters, their press quarters, their kind of famous coverage that they have. They definitely have those rules. And another way that you can attack that and mess up their rules a little bit is in bunch stacks. So you kind of think of like stack would be like one behind the other. Bunch would be kind of like three people, maybe a 3x1, like in a triangle, or think of something like that, where a lot of times you're going to attach a screen to it. When I say attach, that just means one of the people, runs a screen basically and gives you an option to do that. And what I would love to see Miami do there is kind of run that swing that we've seen them run many times this year, to Tony and some of the other smaller receivers, shifty receivers that they have. But I'd love to see them, run a slip and go, right? Where it looks like they're going to run that slip screen and then they kind of do a double move a little later into the game, break some of those banjo rules that they have. And then out of some of those stack and bunch, run some of those switch concepts, which you've seen work against Miami many times, right? And hopefully hit an explosive for them that way. Another thing that I think Pitt will do when they have the ball is they're really going to try and do the same thing where they run some of their switch routes and some of their swings and Texas routes because they run a lot of that outside swing that I talked about earlier. I think what they're going to do is they're going to run that swing several times and get Ture and, maybe BUZZN, our linebackers, flowing to that play big time. And then they're going to run a Texas or an arrow route behind it and hit that for a big play, or at least have the opportunity to hit a big play. I think that, you're really going to need to see some discipline out of your linebackers in this game, and hopefully they bring that.
Lance, we talked about the tackling on the perimeter wasn't great last week, and that led to a lot of their success down the field in terms of the run game. Corey Heatherman said the guys on the perimeter, need to be more physical this week. We understand without Keontae Scott, he kind of cleaned a lot of stuff up on that end. Are there any adjustments you can make if you're a defensive coordinator when you understand that you're missing one of your best guys there in terms of the physicality on the back end, or do the guys just have to go out there and tackle better this week?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm getting a little bit of static on my end and wasn't fully able to hear that question. Could you maybe just kind of repeat it just real quick, please?
Yeah, Corey Heatherman just talked about the physicality of the defensive backs last week, how it wasn't great in terms of the run defense on the perimeter. I mean, is there anything, knowing that you don't have a Keontae Scott who cleaned a lot of stuff up for you on the back end there, is there any adjustments to be made there? Just knowing the personnel is not the same, or do the guys just have to go out there and be more physical? Seems like he's still having issues.
Oh. All right, we'll bring him back. One thing that I kind of concerns me in this game, but it's an opportunity, and Lance talked about it, is, the way Pitt is set up to play is kind of preferring us to do some of the things that we've done over the course of the year. In other words, inside run, they want us to run inside. Checking down, they want us to check down. They want to force turnovers. We've had issues with turnovers. So, that's one thing that stands out from what he said, and really what about Pitt is that the things that they like to force you to do are things that we've shown a tendency to do. We have to kind of break those tendencies. I think really, to me, the one tendency I'd like to see us break is just playing faster, man, because the more plays are in this game, I think that favors us more than Pitt, because Pitt, they really cannot block. When you get sacked 6 times against Georgia Tech, that's not good. That's not good ball. And they rank poorly nationally. Of course, Notre Dame did what they wanted on them. If they have more plays and we have more plays, I like to think our personnel is better suited. But, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to play, what kind of speed we're going to play. A close game, you get nervous on the road in the cold with a quarterback like this who can make plays out of nothing if you call it well.
I mean, look, we said the same thing about Louisville, right? In terms of them not being able to block, and they were able to combat it. So that's, to me, and the other thing too is they haven't been finishing at a very high rate in terms of when you get to the backfield, they're getting there, but they haven't finished at the same clip that they were finishing at earlier in the season, and that's what concerns me. They've got to finish some of these, and I talked about it earlier in the week with forget who it was, maybe Amon yesterday. I want to see the defensive line finish some of those plays.
Yeah, or the secondary, right? I think one thing I'd like to see, and I was going to ask Lance about this. Let's see if we can bring him on here and get him working. Maybe he's on the audio. Lance, can you hear us?
Kinda. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in. So, Lance, basically we've been talking about the defensive backs, be mentioning you have the ability of the defensive backs to tackle on the perimeter with Keontae Scott out, some adjustments they had them in my make. One thing I mentioned was just in the passing game, I'd love to see some of these defensive backs involved in pressure like we saw last week, because I think unlike Drones, who's a bigger quarterback and can break some of those defensive back tackles, I think Heinschel, from what I've seen, has struggled a little bit with the defensive back pressure because he can't outrun those guys. He's not going to outquick them really, and he's not the biggest guy to break their tackles. So, how do you see the defensive backs being utilized in this game, whether it's pressure, run support, coverage?
Similar to what we've.
Go ahead.
Yeah, probably similar to what we've seen this year, right? Where you're really going to see some of the creeper packages where we insert them either into the fit or into the pressure package. What I kind of mean by creeper is basically they just creep to the line of scrimmage, either, right as the ball is being snapped or post snap, and change the picture to what the quarterbacks had. And they can either insert themselves into the fit. When I say the fit, that's basically the run fit. They then become responsible for a gap or a cutback or becoming the force player on the edge, whatever the individual play call is. But they can also insert themselves into the pressure package, right, where they are coming late or coming from an area that the protection doesn't expect. Maybe they slide to left tackle, let's say, and the safeties, coming off of right tackle, things along those lines. That's whenever you kind of get unexpected pressures on a quarterback, things along those lines. I have felt like the freshman quarterback, has put the ball in harm's way just a little bit, not so much, as he's throwing the ball, but as he's kind of running around. I think there's opportunities to attack the football when you are trying to tackle him. You're right. He's a little bit of a smaller guy. And again, he's really not looking to scramble. He's looking to move in the pocket to hit some of those explosives. So when you do get the opportunity, you need to hit him and you need to attack the football and try and get a turnover that way. I do believe also some of those nickel blitzes that we've seen all season, out of this defense is something that can get home. You just need to replace quickly.
You're there, Lance.
Oh, wait, bring it back.
He's there.
Oh, there he is. Oh,
yeah,
hey.
He's there. I'm just.
You guys still hear me at all?
Yeah,
you're good. Pete's a production wizard. I didn't know you could do that. So now you're no longer just a floating.
I'm gonna
avatar.
just put something up there.
You're the voice the voice of God right now. Coming, you can't see you, but we can hear you. So go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize for my connection issues this morning, but hopefully, some of these things that we see come to fruition. We kind of overcome this cold mystique and mythology that you hear often, with the University of Miami football. And hopefully they kind of surprise me a little bit in this game. This is a game that, over the last 20 years or so, Miami has found a way to lose oftentimes. I heard you guys kind of talking about whenever we first, I first joined and I was sitting back in the studio. I heard you guys kind of talking about, this is the biggest game in 20 years, but I mean, couldn't you have said that about the Georgia Tech game a few years ago or the Syracuse game last year? All those games were just as big as this game from a, what do you want to accomplish standpoint as far as winning the ACC. And what did we see in those games, right? We saw them drop those games. And, Rick, whenever he had his kind of what was it, 9-0 or 10-0 start to the year, we saw them drop a game that they shouldn't have dropped, right? And this is another one of those games where Miami is a pretty decent favorite, and it's a game that means a lot to them. And in my opinion, I'm nervous about this one. I'm nervous about how is the team going to respond going on the road? How are they going to respond going, into the cold? How are they going to respond in a game that they're supposed to win and need to win? And the whole nation, in many ways, in my view, are pulling for them to lose, right? Because of just all the, the pushback that Miami fans have done in social media and the way that they push back on this, Notre Dame narrative where head-to-head really does matter, in my view. But it hasn't seemed to matter to the committee. Common sense hasn't seemed to matter. So it's almost turned Miami into a villain when Miami's really just asking for common sense, right? And so now you got all these eyeballs on you in a game like this. And in my adult life, this is a game that Miami has found a way to lose over and over and over again. I mentioned earlier in the year on your pod, that I was trying to get over my PTSD with this team, and then they go out and do the Louisville and SMU games and kind of bring it right back, right? My PTSD bells are going off in this game. They really are. And I want to see them show me, right? I want to see them come out and compete hard, and the coaches have them ready to play in this game, because I know Narduzzi's going to. I've seen it over and over and over. And I know he wants, to ruin Miami's season and to give themselves a chance to go to the ACC championship game. And the team that I grew up loving, the Miami team I grew up loving, this was what they relished. They loved going into someone else's stadium in a game that you were all jazzed and pumped up and just stealing your soul and telling you about it, right? I would love to see some shades of our, yesteryear Miami teams and see them come out and do that on Saturday. It's an 11 o'clock game, another, time frame that Miami traditionally hasn't played the best at, quite honestly. And, I'm kind of excited because it's just another one of those like benchmark games. To me, Mario he's really brought this program back. He's brought this program to where, it has a foundation again, to where winning 10 almost seems like our fans almost expect that now. 10, 15, 20 years ago, winning 10 games for Miami was not a given. It was not an expectation. I would have danced around my neighborhood, if we'd have won 10 games under Randy Shannon and some of those coaches that we had. And now we expect that. We're almost disappointed that we've gone 10-2 with this team. I'm almost disappointed we may go 10-2 with this team, because I believe it's a great team. I believe it's our best team in the last 20 plus years. And I want to see them go out and prove it this game. And I want to see them show, their physical talent advantages that they have. And this is a true freshman quarterback on the other side of the ball, right? This is not, a fifth year, sixth year, first round pick quarterback. This is a true freshman quarterback. And Miami has Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor and some of these studs in the secondary. And you got to go out and prove it in this game.
It's a prove-it game, man. Lance, appreciate you as always, and hopefully we're breaking down a win next week when we bring you back on for the weekly segment. Thank you, Canada Financial, and thank you, Lance, as you got the little graphic right there from producer extraordinaire Peter Rees. Appreciate you.
Pete is the man. Look at that. Just what did you pull that out in
on the fly?
20 seconds. Pete, I gotta know. I got a couple questions for you guys before I go. Pete, I gotta know. Did you show the young bucks, out there at the Turkey Bowl? Did you show them how it was done? Did you go all Jameis Winston as a wide receiver?
No Turkey Bowl, man. I've never been a Turkey Bowl guy.
You got sisters.
Okay.
I have sisters, and I don't really have I don't have a lot of cousins.
Okay. All right.
That are here. So no Turkey Bowl. I got on the soccer pitch on Wednesday night though. Bagged a couple. I had a brace out there.
Okay.
So that was good. Team didn't get the win, but it's I'm going, man. 3 ACL tears in, same knee. I'm still pushing. Yeah,
my little guy, Jack, Jay Money, the middle one, he was throwing the ball. He was trying to hit his sister in the head with a football, and he was hitting her from distance, like throwing with anticipation when she was moving. I mean, he hit her in the head like 3 times and like perfectly accurate throws from a distance. And then, in the game on Saturday, he was throwing to the other team. So, he's got to focus like he does when he's trying to hit his sister in the head, when he's trying to, hit his receivers in his flag football league. But yeah, he was definitely accurate when he was hitting her. But yeah, man, life's good. Life's good. Did you go out there and play on Thanksgiving?
Now I'm more of a mouth. I like to heckle everyone else at this point.
I thought you were gonna say coach. Yeah, coaching would have been more on brand, but now I'm getting the image of you heckling kids out there.
No, man, I'm definitely the uncle that gives them all crap. I really like to mess with them and get them riled up. That's kind of fun for me these days. But Danny, I gotta know what was on your plate. You're like the guy now that inspires me to eat better, to get back into shape. So Danny, what was on your Thanksgiving plate?
Yeah, good question. So we had like it's like a fake shepherd's pie, I guess. My wife bought it from some store. She made food for everybody else, like, turkey and all the normal stuff. So she bought us food separately. So it was like some kind of like fake shepherd's pie. It was like a special stuffing that didn't have meat, that she made. She made some Brussels sprouts as well. There was some corn deal, like corn kind of, I don't know, cobbler or whatever, something corn related. And then, yeah, man, that was pretty much it. It was a light Thanksgiving. Felt good afterwards. Ready to work out this morning. Get back in it. It's a big weekend this weekend, man. We got games all week. We got Friday.
Shoot, today. we got 2 hours from now. We got a game that has a lot of implications for Miami with the Egg Bowl.
Yeah, so we got to all get right, man. Well, real quick, Lance, I'm nervous too. And let me real quick before we let you go. I'm nervous too for the reasons you said. I mean, it's almost like they're set up to force us to do the things that we've kind of all of our bad habits on offense, right? Defensively, I think we match up pretty well, other than the fact that they have a good offense and they can beat us in a close game. But offensively, it feels like they're forcing us to do the bad habits. This is kind of like how it has to be. You got to overcome all of your bad habits with an opponent that's kind of forcing you into all the bad stuff. It seems like it's laid out perfectly for a prove-it game.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yep. Let's go do it, and we'll check back in, next week upon further review, and go Canes, fellas.
Go Canes. Happy Thanksgiving. Take it easy. All right, there goes the voice of Lance Roffers. Appreciate him joining us as always. And look, we're going for a win tomorrow, trying to go 1-0. If you're trying to go 3-0 with the rare triple win scenario, that's the KashKick app, KashKick in the App Store, and the Play It Forward campaign. You play video games on your phone. Most people do. Sometime when they're waiting for something, their kids are playing on their phone, whatever. You get all your games consolidated with the KashKick app, one of the biggest apps in the country. 4.5 plus average rating, 1.5 million downloads with the KashKick app. So this is one of the biggest apps on the planet. As we get some music here at Duffy's, we get rolling. So as you're playing the game, you're making money. Advertisers are paying you directly. While they're paying you directly, they're also paying the American Cancer Society or donating to the American Cancer Society an equivalent amount. So this is a triple win situation with the KashKick app, KashKick. Last one here. By the way, Duffy's is rocking and rolling. Got a lot of games today. You don't have to wait for tomorrow to watch the games. Come here to watch the games today at Duffy's. But real quick, also want to shout out my guy, the OrchidMan. Other places in the country, it's getting dreary. Pittsburgh, dead leaves on the dirty ground. OrchidMan, you got beautiful landscaping year-round. ORCHID, man, here in South Florida, from Palm Beach down to the Keys. Your landscape artisans, whether it's residential, commercial, they'll take care of all your landscaping needs, maintenance, tree stump grinding, irrigation, fertilizer, you name it, they do it. OrchidMan Florida, ORCHID manflorida.com for all your landscaping needs. And with all these guys, tell them that CanesInSight sent you.
I got to say one thing, man. I'm hearing there's a certain Florida State fan out there who, you know who you are. I'll send you the clip. You've been giving my guy OrchidMan trouble and issues about his picks for the Canes, about his predictions. Got to worry about what's going on in Tallahassee, my friend. You got to worry about what's going on in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I have a prediction. The Noles are going to suck again and continue to sink further into irrelevance. So that's my prediction for the Seminoles. I don't even know what's going to happen.
Listen, I'm hearing that buddy of mine he gives OrchidMan grief for his predictions when the Canes end up losing. Guys, listen, what are we going to do? We're not going to pick against the Canes. Spoiler alert, we just aren't. If we pick a closer game, we think that there's a chance they can lose. That's the jig is up, right? We're not going to pick against them, but we lost a couple, and I'm hearing he's getting some issues from Florida State fans. Shouldn't be happening though.
Should not be happening. So let's switch to a franchise that is rolling, not like the Florida State basketball program, Florida State football program, but a program that is escalating. That is the Miami basketball program. Tough loss yesterday, but I'm still feeling okay. Pete, we talked about it before the show. Seeing signs of progress. The issues are the same issues we all knew before the year as far as shooting. Free throw shooting, I didn't know that would be that much of an issue. That's tough. Yeah. It's kind of an unforced error there when you lose by 10 points and you miss so many free throws. But, seems like a team that's more competitive in these bigger games than last year.
Yeah, and look, it was very similar to the Florida game. Miami actually took a lead into halftime there. And they just eventually, I think, the offensive prowess of BYU was a bit too much. But this was the 4th best offensive team in the country, D. And you held them to, was it 72 points there? So you hold them to about 15 points under what their season average was. Dabonsa, I thought they did a great job of, in the first half at least, really nullifying him, making things very difficult. The top 2 pick talent comes out eventually, and it just becomes a lot to sustain. But you said it, just a team that is loaded with multiple NBA guys. Wasn't too much, like, they weren't too much in terms of when you see these guys getting up and down the floor, right? It did not look like a whole different animal from what we've seen, right? And like you said, what we kind of thought the issues would be before the season in terms of the shooting has shown its ugly head again. The one positive thing I will say, D, in terms of the shooting, and let me see how many they actually shot. But early in the game, Trey Donaldson right off the bat took like 5 threes. He hit 2 of them. One thing that Jack McClinton said with us last week is, I know they're not going to be a prolific shooting team, but they have to shoot. They have to take them. Because if not, then the defense is going to – and I was texting a buddy of mine who knows a lot about what's going on within this program right now, and he said teams are going to be playing zone and sagging off. The way that they were sagging, it's just they're going to give them the opportunity to shoot and really dare them, force them to do that. So I did like the fact that they took. Let me see what the box score says, but it just felt like they were. Sometimes you call it, I wouldn't say forcing shots, but just like forcing the issue a little bit. When you do have a window to shoot, put it up, because if not, then these teams are going to invite you to just take it in. That's what was happening. They were getting to the hoop at times, and then you had 2-3 guys there. Keba Keita, who I mentioned pregame, he's not 7 feet, but he's about 6'9", and he blocked a bunch of shots.
Yeah, he was a difference maker, a huge difference maker. Yeah, Trey Donaldson 3 for 11 from 3, but he was the only one. You know, Timo Malovich only played 4 minutes, so it's not like he was the reason.
He came in late in the first half there.
He's got to shoot. Yeah. He had a couple that he had wide open that he hesitated
and put the ball on the ground to the left.
Yeah, he's got to shoot those, or him or someone else. Like Dante Allen put up 3. I liked the shots that Dante Allen took, though. It didn't seem like Dante Allen hesitated a lot. True Washington took 4 of them. There was a couple that I thought he was going to hit that really should be makeable shots. But you've got to keep taking. You know who I thought was good, and I don't know that the box score is going to really reflect what he did. 6 points and 8 rebounds. Ernest Uday. Oh yeah, I think that was his best. I think you see, and Salih Altuntaz from Turkey showed at times. Only played 6 minutes there, but he was throwing his body around in that. He really gave you a tough 6 minutes there in the first half. Second half, they tried to go small ball to kind of offensively try to get something going. Yeah. And so he wasn't going to give you much there. But this team is going to win a lot of tough ACC games. Really think so. No doubt. It's an improved team. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you had the Euros in the first half and not the second half at all. I thought, Altuntaz.
The trust level, I think, is still not there yet with them.
No, and I think, look, if Malovich is not shooting threes, you can get better defenders there. You can get better guys getting into the paint there. So, what's he there for? I think you just need somebody to be that person that is going to be aggressive shooting the open 3. Trey Donaldson is 11 threes, 3-point attempts. I think it's just his personality being that alpha of the team that he's taken that on his own, but he cannot be the only person doing that. I thought Malik Renew played well. The stats, whatever, 7 to 16, but he was doing well. Bottom line is, if you're an interior scoring team and you can't make free throws, it becomes tough, because you saw how many blocks were there in this game. So
they had 8 blocks.
8 blocks and 7 coming from number 13. And he was the volleyball player blood. That guy was.
But they were inviting again. The defense was inviting Miami to get to the cup, and then he was just sitting there waiting on it. So I think Timo. We've said it, and it's funny to say for a guy who played 4 minutes, but we need more. He can unlock what this ceiling is. And he's not a young guy either, right? He's 20. He's 21 years old. So he's obviously, the speed of the game is an adjustment. He's been playing pro ball. I think it was a great experience for him to be in the World Cup, but I would be interested to see if maybe they try to run him with the ball in his hands a little bit more, because I don't know how comfortable he is right now, D. I think he looks a lot more comfortable as a playmaker when they get in transition.
Yeah.
He can really see the floor. When he gets into the middle of the paint, he had a really good pass the other day. It was Delaware State, but he had a really like, he has that point guard passing instinct. I would wonder, why not let him run the show? Because he can get to the hoop, he can draw some fouls. I think he's just, when you're playing off the ball like that and he's used to having the ball in his hands, when you do get the ball,
yeah,
it's a little bit more, you're a little bit more anxious with it, and you want to try to make something happen. But I don't know that he's in that flow yet.
Yeah, or you maybe just set it up for him to have the open look, or Marcus Allen to have the open look. Some of these guys that are sort of, the fifth option when they're out there, run a play where it's designed to get those guys an open look from three, just to get their confidence going. Because I think with Marcus Allen, defensively, he's been there, number 4. The shots look pretty good. I don't know what his average is on the year, but I mean, he can shoot. What's his? He's shooting 41%, 42% on limited attempts. Why don't we just up?
Yeah, he was a guy, Marcus Allen, not to cut you off,
Yeah.
but that people really at the end of summer said he took a big leap in his game. Good kid, hard worker, length, physical. I agree. He's someone I think that they should really continue to get more involved.
And look, there's not a tremendous X's and O's analysis here, but just looking at the Miami Heat, for example, one thing that Coach Spoelstra does is he really pushes his role players to shoot, and he will like almost push them to shoot bad shots just to get them going and confident when they're ready to shoot. A guy like Allen, I think, maybe making him more of, not a focal point like, hey, here's the ball, make something happen, but hey, this is going to end with you taking an open shot. You are going to get the ball. It's going to be there for you. You're going to elevate. You're going to, right when you catch it, you're going to shoot the ball. Just get him that kind of confidence that it's coming to him and he's going to make the shot, because he's definitely good enough to help you on defense. He gives you size. If he's that guy that's really feeling good shooting the ball, now you can play him more and more. You add a different element. So if it's not going to be Timo, maybe Marcus Allen is that guy.
Yeah,
that's a higher volume shooter than what we've seen to this point. Shout out to Dan Eldon. Again, appreciate all your support for the show. He says, Hoops and Mario run game are similar, limited, but we'll keep it close. Yeah, look, I think.
Hey, I would love if it's similar this season. That means Miami is not only making the tournament, but then they're a top 25, top 15 team there. That's not a bad analogy. I think obviously Mario's a few years in here, and I think he's established what he wants to be and what the culture is here.
Yeah,
I think Jay Lucas will get some firepower in here quickly. And I was telling you, Fran Fraschilla was calling the game, and he was saying at the end of the broadcast, hey, Miami's in great hands with Jay Lucas. He went out of his way to mention Caleb Gaskins and what a talent he is. I'm telling you, man, talking to some people on the national basketball circuit, they say right now, in terms of a one-on-one, which, again, early in the recruiting process, there was kind of this narrative on Gaskins that he was just an athlete and that he was a physical prototype, which he is. He's a physical specimen. But in terms of going and getting a bucket, he might be the best one-on-one player in the country right now, from what multiple people have told me. His jump shot is beautiful, right? So, like, I think there's some playmaking aspects to his game that will need development. That, remember, he didn't have the ball in the last couple of years. It was Cameron Boozer, Caden Boozer there. So now that part of his game is really developing. I think you're going to see him rise in the rankings here, and will end up closer to like a top 10 player in the country than the top 20 where he is right now. So that's, to me, very, very interesting. Side note, I love Bonsa.
Yeah, I was going to make the comp. Are you about to make the comp? Not saying he's as good. Saying he's as good, but I'm saying like he kind of plays like that. Similar body types.
Mid-range, they like the mid-range, which I was just looking back at the box score too. 5 for 14 for Bonsa, but 6 for 7 for the free throw line, and really,
he was good
getting there, and he can finish through contact. But I will say, I know the upside may not be the same, but Cam Boozer, you saw what he did yesterday, 35 and 10. That's going to be an interesting discussion. That's going to be a closer discussion than people think, because I think Boozer's coming in right away as a 20, 10 and 5 or 6 guy in the. I think he's that sort of like plug and play guy in the NBA, especially with he'll go to a bad team probably where he'll get a lot of looks. Like, that's going to be a close discussion, man, because the Bonsa's ceiling is crazy, but Boozer is ready-made.
No, and I liked what I saw with the Bonsa.
Yeah.
Seeing, like, I hadn't seen him. You know, I don't follow high school recruiting as close as you. I'd heard the name, but then seeing him play, I liked his composure. I liked his mental game. He definitely was a difference maker in this game. But yeah,
I didn't realize this. Canes Cat C says that Rivals has Gaskins as the number 3 overall player in the class.
I really do see, again, I'm not saying this is the comp, like this is who he's going to be, like the level, but just like kind of instant blink scouting, which I think, you know, sometimes the first impressions matter. When I was watching DeBonsa shoot some of those mid-range, just seeing his size and how he moved around, I'm like, you know what? I watched so much Gaskins film when he committed. He kind of, I don't know if he'll handle the ball as much as DeBonsa does. DeBonsa's a pretty good ball handler, but I don't know. They're not like.
And then
that
Darren Peterson is sworn to the Storm, says in the mix. I wouldn't say he's consensus first pick. He's not even playing. And there's some rumors he may shut it down rest of the year, which may mean he is the number 1 pick, right? He might have some guarantees there.
Wow.
But I think that'll be a very, very interesting battle. That's the top 3 though, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's talented guys. And look, Shelton Henderson, I hope he stays because I think he has a lot of upside in terms of he gets that shot going, which he only, again, he looks so
Henderson
good.
Looks good, man.
Henderson
good.
He looks great all on the floor game. He looks great. I love the way he competes. 0 for 1. I would like to see more 3-point attempts from him. His shot looked good. What was the game?
He had a mid-range jumper.
What was the last home game where you were?
He
were
did
you
take
we were both
not
Delaware State. Before Delaware State, you were the
Stetson. No, I don't know if it was Stetson. The green team. It was a Stetson.
I forget the name.
That's
we were both there. That shows you how bad our memory is. But
he shot 13 shots though.
He did, but I want to see more from 3. And I agree with this comp from Sworn to the Storm totally. In terms of NBA, Paul George. I told my son the exact same thing yesterday. He reminds me of Paul George in terms of like what he could be. There we go. Volleyball. Shout out to volleyball beating the number 4 Pitt team. No excuse for losing in football here. But yeah, man, it's just ultimately turnovers. And really a lot of turnovers, I think, were just because we were so kind of one-dimensional in the paint that because we had no second option. Right. We're going to get blocked a lot. We're going to turn it over in the paint a lot. And then the free throws, when we did get fouled going to the hoop, wasn't there. So ultimately, look, better Gonzaga, or I keep calling Gonzaga because I'm not used to BYU being good at basketball. BYU was a better team. It is what it is.
You got Georgetown tonight because Georgetown lost in overtime against Dayton. So that was Georgetown's first loss of the year. They had beaten someone. They had beaten Georgetown beat Clemson and They beat Clemson and Maryland this year already. So that would be a really good quality win for Jay Lucas. And it was kind of look. I didn't think that they'd win either of those games against Florida or BYU, but I can have an expectation for them to keep this one within 5 points or so, and I think they can win this one.
100%. Before we're talking a little more college football before we get out of here, but it's not just the day after Thanksgiving. It is Black Friday, which means a lot of shopping going on, a lot of deals. Miami Hurricane Team Store, no exception. 30% off site-wide, some exclusions apply. Black Friday starts now, Cyber Monday also. This is Black Friday through Cyber Monday. So from today all the way through Monday, got 30% off both online at the Miami Hurricane Team Store, MiamiHCS.com, and the Thesis Hotel right across from campus. Jerseys, hoodies, hats, all your game day gear, 30% off. Swing by the Thesis Hotel store right there or shop online, MiamiHTS.com, and grab your Hurricane merch while the deal lasts. All right, so some games today, Pete, football-wise, that we're going to be keeping an eye on for this Friday calendar. I think right off the top, noon, this is the biggest one because I think this is one that is spooky if you're an Ole Miss fan. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Mississippi State, a team that's had some moments this year. They can score. Ole Miss, a lot of noise around the program, a lot of distractions.
I think that it works in their favor. I think they know he's gone, and I think they say, man, we still can go win it. We win this game, we're in the playoff, and we can go do something crazy. Like, I think that the fact that they are probably aware of what's going to happen here can work in their favor. That there's less of a doubt. They know, hey, this is the last one together, so let's go make it a good one. I think they still win that game. I could be completely wrong though and have that read.
No, I mean, look,
off,
they're
but-
7.5-point favorite for a reason. I think they most likely win the game. But if you're looking for like windows for Miami to sneak in, I think if Mississippi State defeats Ole Miss, I think Miami jumps Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has not really been that great of a team this year. They're holding on to that Oklahoma win, but they haven't beaten really anybody else. And I just don't think they're that good. I think if you look at a 2-loss Ole Miss team, 2-loss Miami team, the resumes are pretty similar. Miami's just a better team than Ole Miss in terms of the trenches, the overall squad. If Ole Miss, and then the Lane Kiffin factor, I think factors in there as well. If you lose to Mississippi State, I think that's a team Miami could jump. You look at 3:30, Georgia Tech. It's at Georgia Tech. I don't know how you see this one, Pete. I think it'll be a high-scoring affair. That Georgia Tech defense, I watched them against Pitt, and I really broke down that game trying to understand Pitt better. That is a horrible, horrible defense. I don't know if they can stop Georgia at all.
Yeah, but I think Georgia Tech comes to play. I think that's a one-score game.
Interesting to watch, man. That'd be a good one. And then at night, you really got two games. You got the late night and the prime time. Prime time, Texas A&M at Texas. Texas playing much better.
Can't have Texas win that one.
3 losses.
I still think that they will have a discussion to get them in over my. I think that they'll be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
You want as few teams, which is the same reason you don't want Michigan to beat Ohio State. Like when I say this, guys, it's not that when I'm saying all this stuff about Miami and Notre Dame too, it's not that I think Notre Dame should be in. I'm surrendering to the system, and that's why I still think that a Texas team that would beat Texas A&M here will get a lot of momentum media-wise to get in over Miami because of what the SEC machine is and what SEC plus Texas machine is. Right, there's a lot of money behind that thing. So I don't even want it to be a thing.
Go Texas Tech. Go Texas A&M. I'm with you on that. And then at night, this is not really a game that's going to impact Miami's playoff chances, but an interesting game, I think. Arizona, which is now ranked at 25, it's kind of creeped up on everybody at Arizona State, ranked number 20. So I'm interested to see how Arizona State plays. I mean, they have no Sam Levitt. Levitt's a guy that we've been talking about for the Canes. They're playing better than I thought without Levitt. Let's see if that catches up to him with Arizona at Arizona State. That's
Dillingham's a heck of a coach, man. He is a heck of a coach. I wouldn't want him to end up at Florida. I don't know. We haven't heard his name associated with Florida D, but if this Kiffin thing goes to LSU that we're expecting now, that wouldn't be a good thing.
No, and then by the way, Clark Lee from Vanderbilt signed a big extension. So put him, him and Drinkwitz, you put them off the board. So
is Drinkwitz off the board completely?
Drinkwitz signed a big extension.
When?
He's off the board.
Was that yesterday?
Yeah, he's off the board big time.
Oh wow, that was yesterday. I didn't.
Yeah,
even
Clark
see it.
Lee is off the board
because I thought Drinkwitz was going to Penn State, man.
Dillingham, I guess he's on the board, but he did sign a big extension earlier in the year after the playoffs. So I don't know what his buyout situation is. That might make him a little bit harder to attain. But the names are coming out the board for Florida. I've heard some Summerall buzz, which I think, you got Tulane's coach after you just got Louisiana's coach. That's tough to swallow if you're a Gator fan.
And then they had made the same mistake with McElwain a few years before that too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it would just be too similar. And I think he's a good coach. But you have to separate that from the decisions. Is Jed Fish a guy for them? I don't.
Florida grad, yeah.
Jed Fish makes sense to me, but also is he a great? It makes sense as a hire, but is it the best hire available?
And if Jed Fish goes from Washington to Florida, does Damon Williams follow him, or does he go back into the mix and Miami maybe takes that quarterback? Because if you look at the quarterbacks in the country that are ranked ahead of Beck's quarterback rating, just to go through the stats here, because I thought this was interesting. It's not talked about. We talked about it on a show earlier this week. But if you look at quarterback rating, and you hope this goes up after Saturday, you definitely don't want this going down. But in terms of the quarterback rankings, you look at Julian Sain, number 1, right behind him, like a decimal away, Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia. Those are 3 Heisman candidates. You expect that. Drew Mestamaker, North Texas. That's a G5 program, throws the ball. He's very talented, probably going to Oklahoma State. CJ Carr, been playing as good as anybody. Dante Moore. Again, these are all the names you kind of expect. And then Beck is 8th. Number 7, right between Dante Moore and Beck, Damon Williams Jr. from Washington, running and throwing, doing a really good job. So if you want to keep that elite quarterback play in the University of Miami, could he be a name if Fish were to go to Florida? Now, you might also say Fish just takes him to Florida.
Yeah,
but they got DJ Lagway there. I don't know how that whole thing's going to work out. Maybe he's not happy about it. He's from the West Coast. Who knows how the whole thing plays out? But it definitely puts him up in the conversation. So
Getting some recruiting questions here, but you're gonna chime in too. It's pretty. You're working on Carson Bush, who we talked about yesterday.
Yep.
Amari Latterman. We'll see what happens there. Tank Jones, maybe Nolan Wilson, last minute sort of thing. We'll see what happens there, but there's not much else that you're really working on. We saw Anthony. We should mention Anthony Kennedy.
Anthony Kennedy. Yeah, we talked about yesterday. That was a drop. Mutual parting of ways. Let's call it. He didn't have a great senior year. He's got his size. I don't know if he's necessarily what Heatherman's looking for in this defense. The guy's going to be high motor, long, athletic, get across the other side.
But they've been working on the portal, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I think in terms of evaluations and trying to get their ducks in a row. Remember, we said it that week that they flipped the four guys, 2 weeks ago now at this point?
Yeah.
We said Miami's treating this as the signing day week. They're getting the deals done. They're trying to get these last minute flips in. I mean, Blake Stewart, I haven't heard any positive buzz there. I think that one's pretty much Georgia or Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Probably Georgia, but
here's what I'll say. I think if Miami wins this game, maybe if they don't, but we're hoping they win, obviously. Now the momentum's building, and they're going to go all in from now till Wednesday, and there's going to be big money offers flying. It's going to be a lot of pressure. So win the game.
I think they'll make a late move, and then
we'll make some late moves.
I think there will be a late move made. I'm expecting that.
But anyways, hope you guys had a great Friday. Enjoy the games. I'll be on tomorrow morning. We will be talking the biggest game in 20 years, Miami Pitt. Go Canes. Like and subscribe.
Beat Georgetown. My dad's not going to like that one.
Let's go.